Now, more than ever, we need to focus on stories of strength, courage, and unity. Welcome to COVID Talks, a series dedicated to promoting positive conversations during uncertain times.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our 11th episode of COVID Talks, Positive Conversations During Uncertain Times. My name is Anthony Rapp. I'll be your host for the evening. Before we get into anything, I just want to take a minute to thank once again Ernie Anastas from Fox 5 News being with us last night. We greatly appreciate him being with us. He had some great information to share with us about how to stay positive during the current crisis that we're facing. Tonight, we have an amazing guest, a good friend of mine, a guy whose heart is huge and who owns 6 properties on Staten Island that are probably the most visited restaurants in almost every location. So he's going to give us some insights and some tips as to what's going on in the food industry, how restaurants are staying afloat, and what the plans are for the future. Because as of this afternoon, the governor said we're going to be in this quarantine state for another 4 weeks. So what are restaurants going to do? So we'll have Carmine Gualtieri with us to answer those questions. First, we're going to go into a few headlines. And first up, in our positive news section, so we're all familiar with the iconic statue of Jesus in Rio de Janeiro. And all across the country and all across the world, people have been doing great things to thank our first responders and our medical professionals. So the statue in Rio de Janeiro was actually outfitted in a medical uniform last week to pay special tribute and thanks to all of our first responders and medical workers. So just a quick piece of positivity. On Staten Island, we know, well, not just on Staten Island, everywhere. Sports have been canceled. Sports have been postponed. It's tough for men around the world right now looking for something to do. However, in the midst of the shutdown, a former Tottenville High School football star, Mr. Anthony Coyle, signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers today. So if and when the NFL comes back, we're excited to support a Staten Islander who's doing great things. And last, everyone seems to be jumping on board to provide entertainment for people from at-home venues or streaming them online. So in order to celebrate 25 magical years of Disney on Broadway, they're going to have a live stream on playbill.com and broadwaycares.org. And that live stream is going to be available tomorrow night, Friday night at 7 p.m. Of course, you can tune in after you watch our COVID Talks at 7 p.m. So you can tune in at like 7:30. It'll be fine. You won't miss much, but you're going to want to make sure that you're here with us tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, our guest is going to be Teresa Chirelli from On Your Mark. She's going to be sharing with us some outstanding news, some great campaigns that this nonprofit is working on, and it's actually restaurant related. So we're glad that we put her on tomorrow night because after learning about the restaurant industry tonight from Carmine, tomorrow night we're going to hear about how On Your Mark and her organization is doing something to help both restaurants and their workers that are working daily on site. For more information, how to follow us, quick PSA. Follow us on Facebook at COVID Talk. Check out our website at covid-talks.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at COVID Talks. And check out our podcast on iTunes or Spotify. You can download all the episodes. They'll be available there immediately after the show ends. All right. And before we bring Carmine on, quickly, if you're currently watching this live, I ask you to please go to the bottom, press the share button, share the stream so that more people can get involved and more people can see it. If you're watching it from a tablet or watching it from a cell phone and you have a smart TV, all you got to do is press that button on your iPhone and cast the broadcast to your television, and you could watch it TV style. And if you're listening to us on the podcast, we appreciate it greatly, and thank you for listening in. We hope to provide you with some value. So now, without further ado, he has a long introduction, so bear with me while I read it. So right now we have with us tonight Mr. Carmine Gualtieri. In addition to being a great citizen, a great member of Staten Island, a great community member who gives back to the community at all costs, he is also the owner of the Pizza Parlor, Richmond Republic, Vice Kitchen and Cocktails, Play Sports Bar, the Hop Shop, and he's actually working on a restaurant right now that was being developed pre-coronavirus. So his new location is still being worked on, still under construction, is going to be on Highland Boulevard, and it's called Ashton Hall. So we bring to you Staten Island's most prominent restaurateur, We are proud to have with us tonight Mr. Carmine Gualtieri. What's up, brother? Can you hear me?
Some introduction there.
It's not. It's all lies, brother. All right. So you can hear everything's working good on your end?
We're good.
Perfect. All right. So before we get into nitty gritty, Carmine, just tell our audience a little bit about yourself. How did you get involved in restaurants? I know you've owned multiple businesses outside of restaurants, but give us the background. How'd you go from entrepreneur to owning 6 of the most traveled locations on the island, I would say?
Well, I've been in the business my whole life, hospitality business, my whole life. I started out as a busboy, I guess 12, 13 years old. Then I went from busboying to DJing. And
of course.
Everybody DJs.
Right. Staten Island.
I went from DJing to nightclub promoter. And then from nightclub promoter, actually I opened up a valet parking business. And from there, I bought my first, I guess you could say it was a nightclub lounge. That went from a lounge to a bar. And then from a bar, we started investing in, and opening in restaurants. So that's kind of the whole progression.
And tell me about where you grew up, because we like Staten Island stories. You're a Staten Island guy.
Well, I'm a Brooklyn guy originally.
We won't judge you. That's all right.
So Brooklyn originally from Bensonhurst, and then I moved here when I was a kid, and I've been in Staten Island my whole life since. And South Shore, but actually over the last like 6 or 7 years, I moved to the North Shore. I lived in West Brighton, then I moved to in Stapleton, and now I'm back on the South Shore.
So we're gonna have to break this up into, even though it's one question, you can feel free to give us commentary on each location, because I know, we'll have an overarching, I'll ask you a question about the state of the industry, but on a venue by venue basis, how are your locations adapting to the new way of doing business, and what are you seeing? In other words, how is it one day you're operating and now you have all these locations and you have to completely operate under a different manner? How are you guys adjusting to the change?
Well, I would say each location has been different. Starting with the pizza parlor, we were, I would say, the most, if anybody could be ready for a situation like this, I guess we were the most familiar with the type of business that this situation would call for, meaning more delivery, takeout, less dine-in business. The Hop Shop and Richmond Republic were very similar, where that they were really, mostly dine-in restaurants, parties, functions, and also obviously a nightlife crowd. So those 2 restaurants have been definitely a challenge. A challenge because it's hard to go from dine-in business where people sit down, order an appetizer, order a drink, wait a few minutes, order entrees, order dessert. We're used to that like flow of business, and then now change to we need a full order now, at our house within 15, 20 minutes.
Right. And you got 100 of those orders piling up.
And the orders are piling up. So listen, I'll tell you this: the first 2 weeks were very, very, very difficult for us. It was, it was a challenge. And then on top of that, the biggest challenge of all has been staffing.
Right.
Staffing has become really, really difficult, and it's tough because, what can you do if someone doesn't want, if someone doesn't feel comfortable working? Obviously, yeah. I totally understand it. So, the first few weeks were hard. Now we're starting to really get into the flow of it.
And now, do you see any one of the locations performing better? And do you think there's a reason, or is it, because you're scattered all over the island? I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong. So the locations would be Annandale, Eltingville. Hop Shop is where? Is that considered West Brighton? What is that? Stapleton. Okay. And where else are the other locations? Vice is in
right down the block in Stapleton. Play is in Annandale. And then, we have Ashton Hall on the way. That's in Newdorf. But as far as, I'm sorry, your question was, you said as far as
by location, is there anything that you're seeing one producing better than the other? And do you think there's any rhyme or reason, or is it just people are scrambling, people are hungry, and they're just ordering food?
What I am seeing is this, and which is pretty shocking. I don't think we really expected, is that all the locations, believe it or not, are becoming, I don't want to say busier, but every day is I see a little more uptick in business. And I think it's good. It is good. Obviously, if anything can be good right now, that's one thing. And also, which is kind of strange, is, the days, beforehand, Tuesdays and Wednesdays were our slowest days.
Right.
Now we're seeing Wednesdays are getting busier for whatever reason. I don't know. I don't think I even know what day it is. And I think most people.
Yeah, right. I couldn't tell you what day today is.
No, I don't think anyone really knows what day it is anymore. So maybe they're just going to be all Fridays eventually. So that I'm definitely seeing. And then, like I said, the pizza parlor was the most familiar with this kind of a business. So that place has just been running, on high velocity. And honestly, my staff there and my brother, who's the manager there and also an owner, they are doing a phenomenal job. So that place has been really the one that just took it and ran with it. The other two locations been a little bit of a challenge, but I think for the most part, we've dealt with it, and we're working through it. I think that in the Hop Shop in Richmond Republic, the walk-up business, the takeout business, is definitely less than the pizza parlor. I think definitely more of a delivery business there than the takeout business. Pizza parlor, I think people are just used to it. They walk in, they get a pie. It's easy. People aren't used to walking into Richmond Republic and ordering a lobster or it's just
taking out one of your monster Bloody Marys. They're not used to doing that.
No, they're not used to doing that. So I think that's kind of why that's happening.
So let's talk a little bit about the ability for restaurants to now deliver alcohol. So it was never available before. Mm-hmm. They're letting restaurants do it now. So the question is actually twofold. Do you think it is helping the bottom line? Because the intent was, I believe, from the top down, restaurants are struggling. If we allow a restaurant to serve alcohol, there's obviously a higher percentage of margin, so they can earn a little more. So the first part is, do you think it's helping? And the second part is, do you think it's being done in a manner that will allow restaurants to continue to serve alcohol via delivery after this is over?
Okay. Do I think it's the first part of your question was, do I think it's actually helping us? That's pretty much what she said. I think that it is helping us in some ways. It's definitely not in any way, and any bar owner would agree with me, or any restaurant owner would agree with me. It's definitely not compensating for the lost revenue.
Right.
In our bar. It's just not. It's nowhere, not even in the same. You sit down at a bar, Anthony. I know you probably don't drink that much. You don't look like a drinker. Yeah. But I'm sure you're going to sit down with your friends and have more than one drink at once at a seating. Whereas someone's ordering out to go, they're probably just getting a beer or one sangria or one margarita, as opposed to sitting down in a restaurant and having 5-6 drinks over the course of a night and maybe a shot or whatever it is. So no, it definitely isn't. It's not compensating it dollar for dollar, but it does help in some ways. But the challenge is, again, now we have to staff it with a bartender. We have to make sure that it's prepped, so it's more staff, in that regard. Now, do I think that they should keep it? I think that there's a few things that New York State should look into. And one of the things that they should do to help restaurants and bars would be to keep delivery service for alcohol and wine and beer. I think it doesn't hurt. I think it definitely can help. And, I think there's other things that they can do. For one of them, and I have to throw it in because I've been telling everybody, is I really feel that they need to put a cap on the fees taken by third-party delivery services.
Absolutely.
At 10%.
So comment on that. So all these third-party vendors, I don't want to say they're looking like heroes. They're trying to do the right thing, right? Because they have, cut 10% here. DoorDash is doing something where it's free delivery. They're trying, but you and I both know as soon as the switch is flipped and the world is open again, they're going right back to gouging at 30%. They're going to be doing it. So, what do you think? Do you think that they will? Maybe they'll reevaluate. Do you think there's any way they can?
There's definitely a push. I can tell you that the New York City Hospitality Alliance has been pushing for 10%, 10% max, and I think that's fair. I really do. Now, a company like DoorDash that actually delivers the food, that's a little bit of a different situation. They should be compensated more. They're providing delivery drivers. But for just bringing me the business, I think 10% is a fair amount. And listen, whether it's for a year or 2 years to let us get through this time period, I definitely think that would be a huge, huge help for restaurants, pizzerias, places that really count on that delivery business. And one thing that's going to happen, I feel, after this is I think the restaurant business eventually will creep back to normal. But one of the biggest things I think is delivery business for the people who aren't going to go out anymore. Let's
Right.
just the next 6 months, whatever that time is, they're going to deliver it. They're going to get their food delivered. So it would definitely help us. That 10% mandate would be a help for sure.
So I know you use, because I've asked you this offline, I know you use multiple service providers, let's call it, for multiple locations. So for example, I know the pizza parlor, you use Chow Now. Am I correct?
Yes.
That's one of your service providers. So even though I wasn't going to talk about this, what do you recommend to restaurant owners who are watching or may listen to this afterwards? What do you find is the most effective service out of all the ones that you use? Because if anyone uses them all, I would say you've tried or are currently using at least all of them.
Yes.
So which one do you think provides the most value?
Well, I think Grubhub is the most well-known service. I think everybody, pretty much everyone has Grubhub. Even I use Grubhub. However, just dealing with the different companies, I found that Chow Now has been really, really, easy. Whereas we really just use them to take orders. That's all they're doing.
Right.
If you don't want to build out your own website for order taking, which can be very expensive, Chow Now to me has been a really good alternative. It's very easy. Very user friendly, and it's fairly inexpensive. I mean, it's they obviously have fees, but it's not as expensive as some of these other companies. So I like Chow Now. DoorDash, again, they provide their own delivery service, so in some ways it's beneficial. But listen, if I had to say anything to restaurant owners that are listening, and I think if they've been in the business for any time, they know, try to build it from within. If you can. That's the best, that's the best answer I can give them. Just try to build it from within and eventually, weed out the third party companies.
But for now, the recommendation for any restaurant owners listening would be Chow Now. If they're not familiar with it, give them a try, look them up, see what you think. So that's a good tidbit to share. Now, one of the reasons, and I know this personally, but we even just spoke about it in the green room. One of the reasons you're so successful at your locations is because you have an uncanny ability to sort of, at the drop of a dime, execute. So give me an example that actually the one we just spoke about was a good example, but how do you kind of see the future? How are you able to, today's Thursday, and then tomorrow you've already digested a mandate that came out. You've already brought different staff. You've already created a menu, and tomorrow the restaurant opens, one of the locations opens, and you're already ahead of everyone else. How do you do that with this many locations?
It's a tough question. I think honestly, one of the things is having a strong team, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't have to worry about everything that goes on in the restaurant. I have great partners that help me out. I have excellent managers that really, really help us out. And, I'm able to focus on what my job is. Because even though, yes, I'm an owner, I like to really oversee certain things. I don't try to, at least I don't think I try to like micromanage too much. So I'll look at situations and say, okay, you know what? We got to come up with a different special. And, like we were talking about in the green room, being, getting through 9/11, which is when I opened my first business, through 9/11 and then through Hurricane Sandy, one of the things I told everyone at the restaurants was that this is going to be a day-to-day thing. As the days go, things are going to change, and you're going to see, laws change, just different situations, and you got to flow with it. If you're going to stay open, the alternative is to close and wait it out, which that's just not my DNA, and I couldn't do it.
So tell me the example we were talking about before. What were you able to do at the Hop Shop that you said just matter-of-factly, but meanwhile, it's probably a brilliant idea?
At the Hop Shop?
You said you put up a service window.
Oh, we put up a service window. So yeah, we have, right, yeah. So outside.
You say it matter-of-factly, but there's probably people who own establishments that have been trying to do something like that haven't done it, and you just bang.
Well, I tried to do it at Richmond Republic and Play, but we stuck to just the Hop Shop. So the Hop Shop, we had the old kitchen had a window facing the street. I always wanted to use that window. I really wanted to use it for like a late night taco or late night burger spot because I felt like it was awesome. You could go to different bars in the area, come up, go to the get something to eat and go. So I always had something in mind for that window. And then when this situation came about, I was like, yo, we got to definitely use it for, for service. It's perfect. So that's what we did. And it's been working pretty good. People walk up to the window and listen, at the end of the day, it also provides, protection for our staff where they're not really exposed to people coming in in and out of the store every day.
So that's an interesting question. So what are you doing internally on the inside? How are you keeping your staff, your kitchen, your chefs, because ultimately everyone's trusting that all restaurant owners, not just you, but all restaurant owners are doing the right thing to keep it clean, to keep it safe, to get it out. So what are you doing in particular that's keeping the staff safe, your customers safe, and the kitchen, in a right frame of mind?
Well, one of the main things that I realized right away was if we are going to stay open, if we're going to make that, dedication to staying open through this, then we have to, in every way possible, keep our staff safe, and also me and my partners safe,
right?
And obviously our customers. So, what ways can we do that? So we started out with the hand sanitizers, then we started out with the every 30 minutes disinfecting all surfaces, and even if when I'm at the pizza parlor all day, that's literally all I'm doing is spraying lights.
All there is. Your hands are raw. I got you.
Hands are raw. I'm cleaning doorknobs. So, but that was one of the things I stressed to the staff is, listen, this isn't for anyone else except for you guys. And you have to buy into this. You guys have to disinfect. If you want to stay here working, and we want you to, obviously, we want to keep people here. So, we have to keep it clean. And then the other thing that we did is we actually hired an outside service that steam cleans at about 215 degrees.
Wow.
And, they came in, it wasn't cheap, but
I'm sure.
No, but they did an amazing job, and I want to bring them back again. Actually, we did it, I think it was last week. I want to bring them back again this week.
And so they come in and sort of disinfect the whole
entire restaurant, everything from, and the thing about it that's cool is that you can't clean books, you can't clean paperwork, you can't spray disinfectant on, every surface. Whereas with this service, I don't know how it works. I wish I could tell you, but you can.
That's why they're making all the money. If we knew.
Exactly. I tried to do it, but so this thing can clean anything. So literally they spray everything, and it doesn't affect TVs. It doesn't, it doesn't ruin phones. And we literally just went top to bottom clean, had the whole place, had every place disinfected, kitchen, basement, bathrooms. And it's something I want to do again.
That's important. And I'm giving you a lot of credit for this because I'm sure other restaurant owners may not admit it, but I guarantee you they're not all doing that. And so that's important that people know that you're taking steps like that above and beyond, because you're not required to do that. Let's be honest. No one said you need to do that. You need to incur that expense, but you're going above and beyond for the community and for your patrons and for your staff to keep them safe. So,
although I think that could be one of the things that comes out of this. Something tells me that along with an exterminator, you're going to have your restaurant disinfected every month. Just one thing that I have in the back of my head that I feel that could happen.
So what are you going to name that company? Because I want to be partners.
We already tried to do it, but it didn't.
You already got it? You already did it?
No, we stopped. We may bring it back though.
I believe me. I'm sure we'll be hearing about something that you'll have a restaurant cleaning supply service.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about community. So you are one of the more involved, I would say, out of all the restaurant owners on the island. There's guys like Pete Botros doing great things, Jimmy Max doing great things. There's a lot of restaurant owners who really are doing the right thing, and you're right there. You're in the mix with all of your locations. What are some of the things you have done or that you're planning to do and I don't want to call it a give back, but as a thank you to the community? Are you doing anything with first responders? Are you thinking about programs when you reopen to thank customers who've been loyal? Yeah,
I mean, I do things because to me, it's just the right thing to do. And that's the way I was raised. But being through other situations, I've learned that it's really, really important. I guess that's where I got it from. And one of the things that we're doing now, well, how it started out is right away, my partner's a fireman. He's obviously been he's been in situations. My mother and my sister are nurses. My cousins are nurses. So I come from my cousins are all cops. So, I've been through I've been around that my whole life, but I realized that we got to do something. So let's start sending these people food. And so we started literally just sending food to the 123 precinct or the South Shore University Hospital or the Rumsey, and we just started sending food. And then I said to everybody, I'm like, wait, guys, we have to come up with some kind of a system here, because we can't just keep sending food. Not that I don't want to. I love to send food and take care of people, but first of all, you don't know what units it's going to. It might just be going to the same unit.
Right.
And then, so we figured out a plan, talking with my family, obviously, who work in hospitals, and figured out what units there are, how many people are in each unit. And then we figured out ways to send to those units. And what we said is, let's take donations from people. Let's open it up and say to someone, if you want to donate $100, we'll match that $100.
Okay.
And one of the things that we're going to do, though, is when we take the donation, we're going to ask them, where do you want it sent to? At least we know that it's going to a certain unit. I want to send it to the ICU at, the Staten Island University North.
Now, not to interrupt you, but is there a way that we could direct people, and we'll try and put on the comments, where they can make this donation? Is it in person? Is there one of your websites that'll accept it? Or is it
we came up with a hotline, basically, an ordering service, and we have someone who answers the phone all day, every day. All she does is take orders, and I can give you that phone number. We could put that up, and if they want to make a donation, they just make the donation. We match it dollar for dollar. We pick up, even if they want to send it to a precinct or a fire department, whatever. At least we know it's going to one specific place. And what's happening is, we've had people who've now recovered from coronavirus. I've had a couple of people who recovered from coronavirus who said, I want to send it to the nurses at, the unit I was in. And I think that's awesome. So that's been working out pretty good. And then listen, once this is all said and done, we'll, I'm sure, do something for first responders, because I think that they deserve the world, especially nurses and doctors right now.
And you always do. I mean, if there's anything on Staten Island going on, there's always a flyer on social media that there's a fundraiser or play. Let's call it what it is.
And you're the first one to call.
Well, I thank you for that. But there's always something going on at play, and it's always positive, and you're always raising funds.
Because it's one of the, listen, I always tell people that, especially in the bar business, like, there's not much that actually brings you like a real satisfaction. I mean, it's fun, it's cool, but one of the things that actually is satisfying is actually being able to help people, so we try to do it whenever we can.
So we're talking a little bit about funds and money. So I know you and I have spoken previously about this, but there is relief money available for restaurants and for all business in general, but specifically for you as a restaurant owner with so many different locations. Can you talk about the process of how to go about it? Were you successful? How did you even try and ascertain funding? So, because they tell you it's there, right? But then it's kind of up to you to go along and figure out how to get it. So what was your experience?
So I become like a pro, along with my assistant, Jessica. I've become a pro at these loans and these programs. So one of the things that we focused on was the PPP program.
Okay.
That's the payroll protection program. And that's developed by the federal government, the SBA. So how the program is supposed to work is that they're supposed to give you an average amount of your payroll for 2.5 months. And you're required to use that for payroll, rent, utilities, things of that nature. It's a loan, but there are ways for it to be forgiven back if you use it for certain things in a certain period of time. So we immediately said, okay, we have a huge payroll. We want to stay open. This is the one we need to focus on. So we applied for all businesses. It has to be obviously a business that's currently open. It can't be for something closed or waiting to open. It has to be something that's been open for a year. And so we apply for all the loans. And the way it works is you just obviously give them, a ton of paperwork and applications, things of that nature. And we got approved for 4 businesses.
Congratulations. Good.
Congratulations, but we haven't received $1 yet. So
step 1.
Step 1's completed. So we got approved for those businesses. One business we still haven't heard back for. And the way it works is you work with your individual bank. So if your restaurant uses Northfield Bank, you go through Northfield Bank. You can't go through another bank. It can only go through your bank, but it actually goes through the bank to the SBA. Now, there are, I think, also third-party lenders, like there's other situations where you can go to someone else, but I'm not exactly sure how that works. So anyway, we're 4 for 4. We're waiting for the 5th one to be approved. We haven't received any money yet. We haven't received any. Well, we actually received a notification that it should be coming, but on the news today, I don't know if you saw. So they ran.
It's gone.
Funds are gone.
That's what I was going to say. So that's why I said congratulations, because unfortunately, all of those funds as of today have been depleted.
Right.
Now, it doesn't mean that they're not going to come up with something else, but it means that unfortunately, if you are a restaurant or small business looking right now or listening to this later on, that portion of the relief is gone.
Yep.
So good that at least, thank God you got in. So we hope and we'll pray that it comes in. So I'm sure it will.
It works is they're not accepting any more applications.
Right. Because the money is gone.
Right.
Which
but
is
if you applied,
right, you're still in the mix.
You still get. I don't know. So we're hoping right now. That's what
based on what I read. If as long as you were in and your application's been submitted, and again, this changes every day, but as long as the application was in and submitted, you're still in the mix to get the funding. Right. But if you were to submit tomorrow, you're out. They'll push you into another program, but that program still hasn't been developed. So at least your locations have been able to get through that first hurdle of the application process. And I'm sure eventually the funding will come through. Which I'm glad you were able to get through that, because it's not easy. There's a lot of business owners who don't know the first thing or the first way to even get started. So you having to do it from multiple locations, kudos to you. All right. So before we open up Q&A, so again, anybody who's watching or listening, if you're watching, we encourage you to type any comments that you may have in the feed. Carmine and I will be able to see that live feed. We're going to quickly introduce our COVID hero of the day. And then when we come back, we're going to have one or two more questions for Carmine, and then we're going to look to the feed, the live stream, and we're going to see if we have any questions, which we'll answer. So moving on to our COVID hero of the day. Now, some may think that this is morbid or inappropriate. However, the COVID hero of the day today is actually Scalia Funeral Home. And I'll tell you why, even though it sounds like it's morbid. Scalia Funeral Home has been a cornerstone in the Staten Island community for, I believe, over 50 years. And they have always given back to the community in any way they can. And the reality is their business is in funerals, right? So it's not a sexy business to begin with. However, what they've done is that anyone who suffered a loss due to the coronavirus, the state was previously burying these people elsewhere in other places. What Scalia Funeral Homes has done is they have accepted the burden of providing proper burial services for anyone who is unable to afford it themselves. And so for that reason, we thank Scalia Funeral Homes for, sort of carrying through literally to the very end. And we applaud them for their efforts and thank them for all the generous work and great work that they're doing in the community. All right. So we're going to come back into Carmine. I'm going to pull up the feed. So if you want to see the feed on your side, I'll ask you another question. But then in the meantime, we could look and see if we want to pick and choose any of the questions. So my last question before we open it up to Q&A. You and I were talking about this. I'm sure many people have been talking about this, even people who don't own restaurants. Eventually, the switch is going to flip, right? And we're going to be off quarantine. We're going to be able to go out. We're going to be able to be normal people again. But as a restaurant owner, you're still going to have a certain number of feet in between all of your tables. You're only going to be able to put a certain amount of people in a restaurant. So what do you think the future holds as far as people just sitting in and me and my wife having dinner next to 3-4 feet away from you and your wife, or do you think people will just adopt and get right back in, or do you think it's going to be a tough haul for restaurants to bring people back into the restaurant?
I think that it's going to be a case by case situation. I think certain people will jump right back in and have no problem going out and socializing and hanging out, and dining. And then I think there's going to be people who are not going to go out and they're going to wait it out and see what happens and go stir crazy in their house and see how the next few months go. I do think that there's got to be ways that we can make it more comfortable and more safe for everyone, and we'll definitely come up with different solutions for that. One of the things is going to be like we talked about before, is having your restaurant sanitized and disinfected on a regular basis. I think that's important right there. I don't know how the bar business is going to be affected. That's something that I'm still trying to figure out. I'm still trying to process that. But I do think that life in general is going to go back to normal. I do. I feel like we've been, not that our generation has been through it before, but Americans have been through it before. There's been other flus, there's been other pandemics, there's been situations where people thought it was the end of the world, and it wasn't. We came through, and we became a better country afterwards. So I think that I have no doubt in my mind that it eventually will come back to normal, and I think it's going to probably be sooner than a lot of people think. But obviously, there's going to be situations that hurt restaurants in the short term. But I think that every restaurant owner at this point just wants to open up and kind of see what we're dealing with, and then we can adjust. And I think delivery business, for the people who don't go out, they'll still get their food delivered, and it's still
going to work.
They'll still order from their favorite restaurants. Yeah. So.
All right. So we're looking at the comments. I had one that I wanted to mention from your partner, Craig. Where is it? Craig actually posted the phone number. Here we go. So for anyone who's interested in participating in what Carmine mentioned before, you can actually call 646-342-6796. Once again, 646-342-6796. They're going to answer your call. You're going to be able to make a donation of any amount you like, select where you would like food to be sent to first responders, medical professionals, etc., and it will be matched dollar for dollar by Carmine. So $100 gift card to send first responders will turn into $200, etc., etc. So we encourage you to do that. Again, that's 646-342-6796. And then we got a bunch of other stuff. So we got our number one COVID Talks fan, Vito Canena. Vito, I love you, brother. Vito is saying he can't wait to be at your wedding. And that you're going to have 10 restaurants in no time. So I agree with you, Vito. I think Carmine's going to have no problem opening at least 5 or 6 more restaurants because he gets bored.
I do get bored, you're right.
And we have our good friend Joe O'Toole from Joyce's.
What's up, Joe?
Telling us that he hates all of the delivery programs. He said no to all of them except for DoorDash.
Oh.
So what do you think? Carmine, you respond. I mean, it's not a question, but he's allowing DoorDash and he won't allow any other delivery services. What do you think? Should he give Chow Now a try? Should he try something like that?
Well, Chow Now, I think, is, again, I like Chow Now. I don't particularly like any of the delivery services.
Right.
But I kind of feel like they're a necessary evil. And I feel like people are just so used to it. They're so comfortable with these services. So, it's hard. Listen, the biggest challenge we have, and we talk about it, I talk about it every week, is trying to figure out a way to get people to change from sitting on their phone and ordering off Grubhub and ordering it instead from pizzaparlor.com or richmondrepublic.com. And it's funny because as a restaurant owner, you would think that I somehow would follow these rules, but Patrice is one of my favorite restaurants in the world.
Right.
I don't call the owner. I don't call the restaurant. I go on Grubhub. And every time I do it, I'm like, why am I doing this? But, so it's a challenge. You got to figure out a way to get people away from, their comfort zone.
So what else we got? Let's see. Shout out to Mary Rapp, my sister, tuning in. Thank you very much. All right. And I think
there's another service also. My partner, Craig Regina, just put it up there, and I got to also mention them, Where You Eat. And
I'm missing it. Where are we?
WhereYouEat.com has been phenomenal, and especially through this. And they're a local service. So Where You Eat.
It's Staten Island based, right?
Staten Island based, and honestly, Alex, the owner, used to actually work for me when he was a kid, and I'm really proud of him. He's doing an amazing job with Where You Eat. And actually, I called him yesterday. I'm like, Alex, are there any Chinese restaurants open on Staten Island? Right. He's like, I got one opening tomorrow. He called me today. I said, no, I'm not in the mood for Chinese food, but let me know, next time, because it's like a process to get Chinese food on Staten Island.
So we'll close the questions from the live stream, and I guess the last thing I will ask, we'll close on this before we play the outro. You have any words of wisdom that are positive to restaurant owners? Everyone's struggling. Everyone's grasping at straws here, right? It is what it is. And everyone's surviving. Thankfully, there are some who aren't. But as an owner of multiple properties that's doing well in a bad circumstance, what do you think we're going to learn? What's the takeaway? How could we use a bad situation to make ourselves better on the other side?
Well, I can tell you that we have to stick together. We have to fight for the things that are going to help us in the long run, which is, again, that mandated delivery fee, maybe keeping the delivery service for alcohol and beer. So there's things that we can fight for as restaurant owners, easing the health department restrictions, easing the licensing restrictions for liquor licenses. It's the backlog of 8 months to a year for liquor license is completely insane. I think there's things that we can do as restaurant owners to work together and try to, help the industry. I think that's one thing. The other thing is, listen, like I said before, you got to go day by day and you have to figure out, you have to adjust to things. And, the other thing is none of us have been through this, although we've been through other disasters. No one has ever been, no one in our generation has been through a situation like this before. So, you just got to keep the faith. You have to stay positive. And you got to keep your staff and your customers healthy as possible right now. Those are my words of wisdom.
Perfect. So we're going to pull you off the screen, but I ask you to stay there for a minute while we do the outro, and I'll be right with you. So for everybody who watched, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. Everyone listening on our podcast, we appreciate you as well. Thank you so much. Be sure to tune in tomorrow night at 7 p.m. for our guest, Teresa Chirelli. And with that, I thank you for tuning into COVID Talks, positive conversations during uncertain times. We'll see you tomorrow.